Welcome to the Fundraising Leadership Podcast. This is episode number 60, and my name is David Langiuli.
And I'm Janice Cunning. And David, we have a guest with us today. We have Dr. Robert Harter, who's the Executive Director of CCPC in Park City. So welcome, Rob.
Hey, it's great. Thanks for having me on the show. It's great to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'll also mention that you also host your own podcast, which is called the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. So we'll encourage our guests to get signed up for that too, because obviously if you're listening, you must like podcasts and you care about the nonprofit sector.
Yeah.
So that's another great one you can listen to.
Thank you.
Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do as the Executive Director at your organization and what your organization focuses on?
Yeah, you bet. I'm the Executive Director. We have a staff of about 52 paid staff and about 1,000 volunteers a year. So it's a place that keeps me very busy. We're a humanitarian community center. We have two campuses, Park City and for Utah folks in Heber. So we reach primarily a two-county area, but our outreach now has reached throughout the state. One of the things we've done, for example, we have quite a bit of work. We partner up with Native American communities throughout the state of Utah. And right now, for example, we work with the Goshute tribe, which is in far western Utah. And that's been a really fun partnership. We've learned so much from them. And so we end up doing all kinds of different things. We have 2 food pantries. We have 3 thrift stores. We have a fully staffed mental health counseling center with 12 professionally trained counselors. So we try to be, as much as we can, a wraparound service organization where people come not just to get food or not just to get clothes or furniture, but to provide wraparound services. We have case managers, we have, of course, mental health counselors. So we try to provide, again, whatever that need initially emerges to be, to come alongside and provide multiple ways to support that family, support that individual. And so it's been a lot of fun. Certainly during COVID-19, were inundated. We were serving 1,000 people a week with food. We had over 900 people that applied for what we call rent assistance. It's basic needs assistance. So our fund, essentially we're in a very resort-driven economy here in Park City. And so the resorts closed right away and most people lost their jobs. And so the working class that work here in this area, right away, they couldn't afford their rent. They couldn't afford their utility bill, their power bill. So we had over 900 families, again, apply for rent help. And so far to date, we've distributed over $500,000 to give to individuals to make sure they stay in their house. They can pay their bills. It's been a really challenging time in terms of just getting through the need, but it's also been very rewarding in the sense that that's what we were set up to do. And so we just had to scale up our organization a bit to match the need. But we're able to do that, and we were just glad that we had such tremendous community support. Honestly, if we didn't have this community support, we wouldn't have the resources to give out to people. So we're very excited and very thankful for this community to support our efforts.
Yeah.
Well, and I learned that you're an outdoor enthusiast. You're you already mentioned you're a podcaster. You're a parent. Like, how do you do it all?
I know, yeah. That is a good question. Like, sleep is overrated. I mean, that just never happens when you have time. But no, yeah, I'm like you. Sounds like you're also an outdoor enthusiast. And I mean, living in Park City is a great spot. You go out your door and you can hike and bike and mountain bike and ski. Yeah. Mountain climbing, whatever you want to do. So it's really, I feel very lucky and blessed to live in a place like this. So I do love it. And luckily my kids love it too. So we do things together. We ski together, we mountain bike together. So it's kind of a fun thing to be able to do together. So we try to combine as much as we can with the whole family as we can.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you wrote about, you wrote on the Fundraising Leadership blog site, you wrote an article about impact. And it's a topic that Janice and I, near and dear to our hearts. We're always asking ourselves, what's our impact as leaders? We're often working with our coaching clients and reminding them that they're always having an impact as a leader. So why don't you share a little bit about what this idea of impact?
Boy, yeah, it's such a good question. Impact, I think, is what in my experience of being a nonprofit director and through my podcast and learning from others who lead, large nonprofit organizations, and then reading kind of the trend lines, particularly I think with this next generation. But I think it's always been true. Maybe it's being applied a little bit differently. But the bottom line is this, that people who give to your organization, they want to see the impact of their money. So in a sense, they're investing in your organization. So when they do, they want to see what kind of impact is their money having. And so you need to, as an organization, as a nonprofit leader, be able to effectively and clearly show how their money and their donation really has made an impact. Because I think with the explosion really in the last 20 years, you'd say, of a lot of nonprofits popping up kind of everywhere. And certainly like we found that to be the case in Park City. Population wise, we're not a huge population area, but we have over 120 nonprofits in this area that technically are I think the county is like 40,000 people. And we have over 120 nonprofits, all asking for money, all asking for support. So the ability for you to communicate, here's where your money is going to go, here's the impact you're having, you're going to retain those donors. And it just gives confidence that when people invest in you, they're like, oh, good, I'm giving it to a good cause. And you know what? I'll give again. And when it comes to the end of the year, I'll give again, right? Because you continue to let them know about the impact they're having. And then they feel like they're part of your organization a little bit, even though they're not rolling up their sleeves necessarily. Now, some hopefully are and helping out. But if they're not, by giving money to your organization, they feel like they're making a difference in the world. And I think that is what, at the end of the day, what most people want to have.
Yeah. And I loved you had this phrase in the article, like about how stories illustrate mission in action, which I thought was like a really powerful way to think about it. And you shared a story about sort of a very special day for your organization that I think really illustrates this. So can you, for those who haven't had a chance to read yet, can you share that story with us?
Yeah, this is a really special day. Okay, one of the things we do, we have these 3 thrift stores, right? And so we are like the Goodwill, where we receive donations of furniture, clothes, etc. And we, of course, give that out to people. So on one particular day, we had a donor that called us and said, and she was a regular donor, and she gives financially to our organization, but she also gives things to us, furniture, clothes, etc. Well, she called us up one day and said, hey, I've got a house full of furniture that I'd really love to give to your organization. And I know if I give it to you and you sell it through your thrift store, it supports your food pantry and all these other programs you do. So that's fine. But if you had a family that could really benefit from this furniture I'm giving, I'd really like to give it to a family. So I'll trust you to figure out if that happens. So on that same day that donor called, we got a call from someone else in Hebrew of all things. And it was a family that they lost everything in a fire. And they had no insurance. They had no ability to buy enough furniture to get back to where they needed to be. So they'd heard through the years of our service that they could come and call to our organization and to get some free furniture, basically, because they had lost everything in a fire. And so when we get this call from a family that needs a house full of furniture, we just got a call from a donor who wanted to give a house full of furniture to a family in need. We're like, this is meant to be. And so that was one of those moments, like, that's why we're in business. Like, that's why we do what we do. We link up people that have things that want to give and those who have need. And I tell you what, when our staff was able to deliver that furniture, that was really nice furniture, by the way, it was a Deer Valley condo and it's really nice furniture. We could have probably sold it for a lot of money, but we knew that this furniture needed to go to this family who needed it so severely. And when they received it and it was all for free, they couldn't believe it. I mean, they were really choked up. They were so emotional because we didn't know them. They just called us on a whim and just to see if there's a chance to get some furniture. We gave them a house full of furniture. So that was one of those examples where it was so rewarding and so encouraging to be able to, first of all, the donor that came to us, I mean, I give her a ton of credit to give us this wonderful furniture and for us just to be a pass-through to someone who really had a need. And we're able to take care of and help this family out in a really significant way. Like, that has impact. We've told that story multiple times just because it's such a powerful story. And when people hear it, they're like, oh, I'm so glad. It encourages them. So even if their particular donation didn't necessarily go to a family that same day, they knew, they had the sense that, okay, if I give furniture, if I give clothes, if I give other things, you're going to find a family in need and you're going to get it to them. And that was just such an important thing for us to be able to tell that story.
Well, yes. And when you share stories like this, you talked about trust and transparency in the article as well. And I do feel like when we authentically share stories about the impact that we're having in our community, that it builds trust and it helps with transparency. Oh, now I know what those guys, do.
Yeah. Right.
They
Yeah.
don't just solicit, donations and then disappear. They're actually,
Exactly.
you know, flexible. They'll help those in need. And yes, so sometimes folks shy away from telling these stories. Why do you think that is, Rob?
It to me, it always seems odd to me. The only thing I can think of is if you don't feel like you have a good structure,
Hmm.
if you're not able to communicate that you have an ability to turn around and show the impact, and
Mhm.
you're sitting on this money that someone donated to you, and you're just like, I'm not sure where we're going to give this money. I mean, maybe you're embarrassed to share that, yeah, we really haven't given your money out yet, but we're looking for an opportunity. So that's the only thing I can think of, is that you're not quite operating on all cylinders, and you're not able to give a good report back to donors. But
Mhm.
other than that, to me, it makes no sense not to share your stories, not to pass on, here's where your money's going. In fact, here, one more story. Just during COVID-19, we had this tremendous outpouring of support for people that need rent assistance. And so we had a couple of donors who had never given to our organization before, and they wanted to give a significant gift. And so they wanted more information. They wanted to know, where's this money going? We don't know how much money is going to be given. We want to know, in a sense, who is going to. Now, we do protect the people that we serve, so we're not going to give them their personal information. But we did say exactly, here's the bills that it's being paid. We have a policy, because we're audited every year as an organization. We don't give money to individuals. We actually give it directly to, like, the apartment manager, or we'll give it to the utility company, or we'll give it to the power company. So we
Mhm.
write checks directly to wherever the bill eventually is going to go. But we're able to just be totally transparent and say, here's where your money's going. Here's a list of people. We gave a report to this one particular group of donors every week. And they were at first they were just like, not sure. And then the more transparent we were, they were more hands off, like, great, okay, I trust you. You're giving me reports every week, and you've answered all my questions.
Mhm.
And they loved the fact that we were, giving, in a sense, we had an audit trail, we had a paper trail, knowing exactly where this money was going. So I think, to me, to your point, David, I think those are the kind of things you want to tell. You
Mhm.
want to be more transparent, because that actually is going to encourage, like you said, donors to say, oh, good, that's what you do. That I want to know this. Well, because one of the things I mentioned in my article is that, sadly, there's a third of I think this was an American study, a third of Americans don't trust nonprofits,
Right.
because they're
Well,
not.
there's a lot of hoarding going on,
Yeah,
and I'm really glad that you're sharing that your organization is serving as a flow through from donors to recipients. Now, look, I think everybody gets that. You said you had the organization has like 50 some odd employees. So
yeah,
I mean, we have to sustain the organization.
that's right.
What I think happens, what I'm seeing, where the distrust comes in, and we see this a lot with some of the larger nonprofits, is that it becomes more about the organization than about the people they serve.
That's right. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Covering salaries, paying the light bill, yeah, paying the
Yeah.
building rental or whatever, the mortgage. Yeah, you're
Well,
right.
and
Yeah,
you have to
it's
do all that. You
You have
do.
yeah,
to. You
yeah,
have to. Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
But it's
I
like,
mean, there's been
yeah.
some interesting conversations in our community about endowments, for example, right?
Yes.
And this, like, as you mentioned, Rob, like we're in this time of COVID-19, and if we were saving for a rainy day, it has come, right? And so it's like
That's
also the
right.
transparency of, like, what are you doing in this moment of crisis to really step forward and make an impact in the world, because
Yes.
if you were waiting for something, the time has come. you know
Exactly. That's right.
so yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's, and one of the important too is, like, transparency is also, like, things don't always go the way we expect them to go as an organization, and we have
Very true.
missteps, and to also be willing and vulnerable to share with your donors what those times are, because people know that things go wrong, and I think it's hard to strike that balance, I think, sometimes. Like, how do you as a leader strike that balance between transparency and reputation?
Oh, that is a good question too. I think we try to, anyway. We're not perfect by any means, but we try to err on the side of transparency. even if, like, say that reveals, maybe we made a mistake, or maybe things didn't go, like you say, as planned. One of the things I mentioned in the article, I never forgot this story. One of my guests was one of the leaders of Charity Water, which is a large international organization, and it stuck with me. And I'll share it real briefly. They told this story about early on in their organization. They help create clean water, and they build these wells all over the third world countries all over the world. And so they had this live event because they were very much into technology and showing all that they do and how donors are giving money and where it goes. So you have this major event that's all live, and they're all excited to have this water turned on for the first time, and this well's going to supposedly work. The whole village had come out, and the well basically didn't work, and it collapsed. And so my guest on the show just shared how everything in them wanted to just turn off the camera and just, go to a commercial break, even though they couldn't have a commercial break, but that's what they wanted to do, is hide their mistake. And they chose instead to talk it out and just say, this was an absolute failure. It was awful. But let me tell you what we're going to do to fix it. And by being transparent and not covering up their mistake, they actually gained more trust. And I thought, oh, that's such a good example. I want to make sure we're doing that in our organization. When something goes wrong, tell people about it. Just be honest and just say, yeah, we messed up, and here's what we're going to do to remedy the situation. And we want to make sure we get the information to you. So I think that's how we're trying to do it at our organization as well, is, again, if you're going to err on one side or the other, just err on more transparency. And you may feel like, oh, I'm an idiot, I'm a terrible leader, or the organization, I still think at the end of the day, people want transparency and honesty. And yeah, you may get some short-term loss of people are like, oh, I'm frustrated. They didn't manage my money very well. But long-term, I think you will get gains because they know, hey, at least they were honest about it. And so if I do give my money, they're going to tell me honestly what happens to it. So I think that's really important, just to build that trust over time. Again, even when you have a failure or you have a mistake.
Yeah. We one thing we talk a lot about, ourselves, David and I, and with our clients, is this idea of staying. Like, that's the thing in leadership, is like, things will go wrong, you will make mistakes, but your obligation is to stay, and see what the impact is of what you've just done, and then react to it, in a way that, like, helps move it forward, right? So that's
Right.
exactly what you're speaking to. It's like, that's the hard part of leadership,
It is.
Well,
in the
Very much.
moment where you want to turn off the camera and you're like, but I can't, I have to
Exactly.
stay.
Look
Yeah.
away. Nothing to look at here. Mosey along.
Well, there is a lot of that in our culture now. It's natural enough. People are afraid. They don't want to look bad. They want to look good and avoid looking bad, especially to donors. And that's just a natural thing,
Mhm.
Very much.
But as leaders, we encourage ourselves, and we encourage our clients to not only stay when they make errors or mistakes, which happen. If they don't happen, then you're probably not stretching yourself enough as a
That's right.
person or an
Very much so.
organization, to be honest. And then not only that, but then you got to clean up any messes that you make.
Exactly. You're right. Totally. You're absolutely right.
Because messes happen.
They do.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You
Part
know?
of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
So
about what you found, but I found the millennials in particular, they are used to that, I think. It's like, I think they've been so conditioned by all the salesmanship through social media, all the, the pitches here and there. And so they see through that. And I think they find that the more authentic and open you are about your failures and mistakes, the more they trust you, because they don't want someone really slick, having perfect,
mhm.
everything's great and you're always making the right decisions. I think they sniff that out, like, that doesn't seem authentic and that doesn't seem genuine. Therefore, I'm not sure I trust that organization. So ironically, I think the more transparent you are, the better, actually, particularly with this
Yeah.
next generation.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the other thing I really like that struck me that you wrote is, and I think you mentioned it, somebody had mentioned it on your podcast, was like, people give through a nonprofit. They're not
Yeah.
giving to you, they're giving through you. And ultimately, it's what you're doing with it and the stories that you're telling about that matter. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, you are hopefully a good conduit. David said it earlier. They want to go through a trustworthy organization, but at the end of the day, they want to see the impact. They want to make a difference in the world, and whatever that is, feeding people, clothing people, helping with medical supplies. They want that to happen. So you're the one they're going to give through to make that happen, and therefore they feel like they're a part of it. So I think
Yeah.
that is a big piece of donation and donor motivation.
Yeah. And I think it's
Mhm.
exciting. I mean, that's what I see in the younger generation is like more of a sense of like, what are the issues that we have in society and how do we tackle them?
Yeah,
Whereas, if I think about like my parents, for example, like they were more traditional donors who would attach to an organization and then be
yeah,
loyal, which
right.
has its upside. But I think there's a nice movement in like this idea of like, I don't really care how it happens. I just want this issue to be addressed.
Mhm.
Right.
And stories really are the way to showcase that, as you're pointing out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
let's,
there is lots of data now that the more traditional donors who give because they gave and because they've been attached to this long-standing organization, those people are going away,
mhm,
and I think you've got to smaller and medium-sized nonprofits like yours, Rob. It's a great opportunity
Yeah.
because I think even for more older donors, they want to see impact. They want to, a lot of the larger organizations have big endowments. They don't need the money. They don't need, I
Right.
mean, in a way, in a sense, they do, only to get bigger.
Right, that's true. Yeah, right. When they have these large endowments, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
I'd say most nonprofits are like, what's an endowment? Like, I want one. I have no idea to
Right.
get one now. Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
just out of their range. It's not even a thought. They're just surviving week to week, month to month sometimes, right?
Yeah. And also, I think with an organization like yours, uh, $1,000 donation, a $2,500 donation, a $5,000 donation, this can go a long way,
Yeah, very
you know?
much.
house
And we're
full of
talking about
furniture.
a
Yeah.
house full of
Exactly.
furniture. I know
Exactly.
when you know, my wife and I downsized a couple years ago, and sort of like early in anticipation of of being empty nesters, we did the early downsize, and yeah, we gave away a lot of stuff, and
Yep.
we know it's. I was just having this conversation with one of our other partners, Michelle, who was in Boulder, Colorado, and um, I gave away like stuff that had been handed down to me for generations
Wow.
of stuff, and it's really, as a donor, it really will test your generosity when you have to
Yeah,
when you give
totally.
away stuff that like that has emotional attachment to it.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sentimental value,
Uh,
right?
In
yeah.
some respects, giving money away is easier.
Probably, yeah.
Well,
Not
I
as
could
attached
share
to it,
from
sure.
my own experience. That's
Mhm.
true.
Definitely. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
All
not as
right.
emotionally
Well,
attached.
Rob, let's give people something tangible that they can
Yeah.
try.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, one of the ideas, and I mentioned a bit in my article, is so here's something I would encourage you to do if you're listening and watching is do an audit, if you will, of your social media and your website. And one of the ways you could do that is get somebody who maybe is a fan of your organization, but maybe it's certainly not a staff person, more someone who's on the outside a bit that's not in this every single day. Because sometimes I think when you're an organization and you try to look at your own social media or website, you get used to things. Just like when you come into a new house, you see every single crack in the house. And then when you're there for 6 months, you don't see anything. You're like, oh, this is great. There's no problem. Well, and I think that happens with organizations. And so ask somebody who's maybe a new donor or just someone who's new to your organization and is not there all the time. Have them look at your website and give you feedback.
Mm,
What are the stories that are being shared just by your website? Look at your social media. Are there certain themes that come through on a consistent basis? Again, what kind of stories are you saying and telling? Are you just doing videos all the time? Are you doing just pictures? Are you inconsistent in your posting? Does your stories, do they actually reinforce your mission, or are they just kind of random things of where you're tacking on articles about something that's maybe trendy but has nothing to do with your mission? So just having someone do an audit of your organization's external communication, again, that'd be a website and social media primarily, that can be really valuable, because then it's helping you get some feedback to say, this is what the majority of people out there in the community, out there in the cyber world even, that's what they're viewing your organization as. What message is that? And is it the right message? Because as we've been saying this whole time, people want to know the impact, and if they're giving, and if they're going to give to your organization, or if they're thinking about giving to your organization, hopefully your website, your social media is all telling the right story that reinforce what your mission is, and it really makes a difference. And that's actually going to draw people in. It's funny, you think about it, back in the day, probably, all of our parents, if they went to, say, a business or a restaurant or a nonprofit, they would actually physically knock on the door and probably show up at the physical location. They don't do that anymore. Most people, they're not going to come to your location. They're going to go to your website. They're going to go to your Facebook page. They're going to go to your Snapchat page or whatever you have, and check out your organization online well before they ever walk in the doors of your organization. So if you don't have a good message there that, again, aligns with your mission and who you are, you're not going to get possibly the donors and the volunteers and the supporters that you need. So that would be my recommendation, is just a quick audit, maybe get a couple people to do it, and be open to whatever feedback they give you, because it may be kind of painful, but that's okay, because that's how you're going to get better. So that's
well, yeah, and I'll add to that. Janice and I have done a lot of research around this, and Gen X is a generation that at least that Janice and I are in, and they're kind of a silent generation. There's lots of money there. Boomers and millennials get a lot of attention, but Gen Xers, if you look at the research, they do their research on the web. They check you out.
Yep.
So your invitation to our audience to do like a communications audit of your web presence is excellent advice, especially if you want to appeal to Gen X donors. It's essential, actually.
Well
so we're that's a great invitation for our audience. And want to thank you, Rob, for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate your sage advice, not only as an executive director, but also as a fellow podcaster and helping nonprofit leaders.
And where can people find you, Rob, if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, so I'd say probably the best place is do Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. I know it's kind of a mouthful, but if you just type in Nonprofit Leadership Podcast into Google, my website will pop right back up, or you can go to iTunes, of course, it'll pop up, and that can direct you, and you can find a whole list of great interviews with various people. And so yeah, I encourage you to check it out.
Yeah, great.
Awesome.
And they can go back and listen to the Charity Water episode.
Yes,
in
absolutely.
particular that you
was
mentioned.
a great
That sounds
one.
really great.
Yeah, they're a good organization. I think they're doing a really good job. They communicate their mission really well through stories.
Great.
Awesome. Well, and for our audience, of course, you can find the Fundraising Leadership Podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and now Google Podcasts. We encourage you to subscribe also. Very complimentary to what you're doing, Rob. And if you do that, please go ahead and rate and review the Fundraising Leadership Podcast, starting with this one with Rob Harter.
Yeah.
So now we will invite you to go put it into practice.